Today I'm answering the question, does the whey or the yeast nutrient of choice affect the total flavor of your mead? So let's get started. Now I'm doing this video in a couple ways. One, I'm using a couple different yeast nutrients, which are something you should be using in your mead making. But two, I'm also doing them in the different forms or fashions in which you can introduce yeast nutrient, aka all up front, adding it all in the beginning, staggering it, and then I have a variable of none. I didn't do any nutrients for one. So there are 7 total bottles of mead that we're gonna taste later with a friend. And I can show you what I did with each one. I wanted to use organic yeast nutrient, so I chose Fermaid O. I love Fermaid O, it's a really good one. And I wanted to use inorganic, so I also chose to use diammonium phosphate. Here are the 7 variations on how I ran this test. So variation number 1 was no nutrients. I left it as simple as can be. I just didn't add any nutrients to my brew. We'll talk about the results there. Then I had some staggered versions, meaning that I added the yeast nutrient over time. I did a staggered diammonium phosphate, which diammonium phosphate is straight nitrogen. It doesn't have as much interesting things or micronutrients in it for your yeast, but it does give them nitrogen. So I did 1.3 grams of diammonium phosphate per addition for 3 additions. And the way I staggered all of these things was over the course of, basically I did some at 24 hours, then at 48 hours, then at 72 hours. So I staggered them over 24-hour spans, each one. So we had a staggered diammonium phosphate. That was 4.2 total grams of diammonium phosphate. You might be asking, how do I know how much yeast nutrient I needed? I had a starting gravity of 1.110 with my must, or my mead, and I threw that into a calculator and then took all of those numbers and then applied them to here. So staggered diammonium phosphate was that. Staggered Fermaid O was 1.7 grams per addition for 3 additions. So that was 5.1 grams of Fermaid O needed to feed our yeast. Staggered diammonium phosphate and Fermaid O, I used per the suggestion of basically every mead making calculator to do organic up front. So we did our Fermaid O up front early, and then we did our diammonium phosphate at the end. And you'll see that on here. So it was 1.2 grams of Fermaid O in total there up front, and then 0.34 grams of diammonium phosphate for the staggered. Now we're into the all up front. We did all up front Fermaid O, which was 5.1 grams before fermentation even started. All up front diammonium phosphate, which, I did my math wrong earlier. The staggered DAP should be 3.9. 3.9 grams of diammonium phosphate up front, and the last one was all up front diammonium phosphate and Fermaid O, 3.79 grams of Fermaid O and 1.02 grams of diammonium phosphate. I made a large batch of must. I split it out into 7 carboys. I put the appropriate yeast nutrient and labels on all of them. And over the course of about a week or 2, I did my staggering of my nutrients for the staggered ones. I had left the all up front ones to go and the no nutrient to go as well. After roughly about, 2 weeks, the ones that had yeast nutrient in them were done fermenting. They kind of cleared up. I took a gravity reading of each. They were all at 1.000. The no nutrient version was at 1.040 after about 2 weeks. So I was kind of on a time crunch for my carboys. I needed them, so I went ahead, I waited another week and a half or so, and that no nutrient was like taking forever. So what I did was I went ahead and bottled the done versions, the staggered and all up fronts, into bottles, and then I waited another 2 or 3 weeks before the no nutrient was done, and then I bottled the no nutrient once it reached the final point for it. We've let them set for probably 3 or 4 months in bottles, and they should all be dry. So now it's time for us to taste them in a blind fashion. We're not gonna know what's what, so it's gonna be kind of anonymous, and that will help us with the tasting. So let's get started. BC, I heard you love yeast nutrient.
I do, actually. I mean, I love it in my meads.
Oh well,
I'm not like
you're not just
going
Fermaid spoonful in the morning.
Yeah.
I heard it's pretty healthy.
That's how I get my protein.
So we've got all
up.
7 of the variables here, as I've explained to you. I've explained to everybody. We're gonna crack them open. They are anonymous, so I had BC shuffle them around. Underneath is the label. At the very end, we'll look, but you'll see right here. This is the list and number and whatever. We're gonna crack them open and pour them, and we're gonna see if there's any taste difference between all of these variables. So let's do it. All right, and there's. All right.
Let's drink some mead.
Let's drink some mead. They all look the same, obviously.
Yeah, they do.
And let's find out if there's any difference. Number 1, which is what you see on screen. It is dry. They should all be dry.
Okay. It smells like honey.
Yep. Got a honey. Definitely a little floral there. Not a lot of alcohol burn on the nose. There's a richness there that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Could be that honey.
I would call it like butterscotch, maybe.
Kind of candy. There's a candy note.
Like a Werther's original.
Love those things.
Not necessarily a bad thing. Yeah, I was gonna say, have you made that?
I haven't made one of those, not yet, but it might be on the list.
I think it has milk solids, so watch out for that.
Well, only one way to find out.
Smells good.
Let's taste it. Dry mead. A little burn.
A little bitter.
That floral is definitely like the end bitter, like if you bit into a flower and you get that last like, you're like, oh. It's not bad. It's just very, I mean, it's got flavor. It's interesting.
And these are all show meads, right?
Yeah.
There's no tannin or acid or.
Nope.
Okay. Because it's a little bit tart.
Yeah.
But that the astringency is there, but it's not woody or it's like wicking. Like it wicks the moisture from your tongue.
Right. That's not bad. I mean, these are
That'd be good with a little back sweetening.
7 months old, roughly. Yep. So, and they're all 14%, 15%. So it's probably fair that.
Good podcast tonight.
All right, next one up, number 2. Definitely a different nose, way deeper, more of that butterscotchy note from this one.
Yeah,
Less
there aren't
bright.
a lot of those like elevated floral notes. It's deep.
Yeah, there's not a lot of brightness.
There's not a lot in there.
Right.
Like you're having to kind of get down in it. It doesn't perfume as much as the first one did.
Okay. It's more flavorful though. Got a lot of bright notes that are different, which is weird because the nose is more muted, but it's got a brighter.
It tastes like it's orangey. It's citrusy,
like a peely, kind of orange, juicy.
A little pithy, but yeah, juicy. I would say is more accurate. It's quite different from the first one.
It also tastes, and I could be wrong, because I believe I double checked and did all the gravity readings. They should all be even out, but this definitely has more sweetness present. So who knows?
Yeah, it's easier to drink than the first one, but it doesn't taste like a traditional mead, or it doesn't taste like a mead made with like a neutral yeast.
Yeah.
Like if you said, oh, I used Voskevike and I fermented these all at 90 degrees, then I would go, oh, yeah, you nailed that.
Right, yeah. Oh, that orange is really present. Yeah, definitely has that, which is interesting to say, that's a cool thing, but wasn't.
Yeah, juicy is a great word for this. It's easy to drink, it just doesn't really taste like traditional mead.
Yeah. Interesting.
It's kind of fun.
Yeah. Number 3 thing. Ooh, nose. Now it's easy to go nose blind here.
Yeah, it is.
After doing this. Still muted though.
Yeah, it's a softer, butterscotchy, caramely kind of note.
A little bit of the bright notes that I got from one, but it's lighter. Back to just the straight floral.
It's almost watery though.
Yeah.
Like it's very thin mouthfeel.
Yeah, and there's like the bitterness is different on this. I feel like it's longer lasting bitterness.
Yeah. It hangs around for a while. But it's not a big bitterness. It's delicate.
Yeah.
But it just has staying power.
It's just right along. So far though, I will say I don't detect any major fusel that's like a fermentation funk. And that's part of this is like, are we gonna see a fermentation funk when you change up that? Theoretically, 6 of the 7, well, not theoretically, 6 of the 7 use nutrition, so that's
So far, yeah, they all drink clean.
Yeah.
There's not anything, other than that like orangey flavor, there's not anything that sticks out that's like a flaw
Right.
yet.
Number 4?
Number 4. This smells much more like a traditional mead.
Yeah, I got my nose in it almost. It does. It presents more of that floral.
It smells like honey. Just a little bit of alcohol to let you know it's there.
Yeah. I was gonna say maybe this is the first time I've perceived alcohol, but
It's not strong. It's just like a little bit. Like whenever you get like a big wine, and you can kind of just sense it. It's very smooth.
ooh,
It's very.
that
smooth.
one is not really watery. It's got a decent amount of body, which is so weird because the only difference between these is it's the same yeast, but it's the nutrient of choice. So like, there's something to be said about body because this has more body presence there.
Yeah, it's
smoother.
not as watery, I guess, as number 3, but smooth.
right.
Like just like goes down smooth. I'm gonna like. So
You're gonna
far,
notch
so
it
far,
up?
Well, so far that one's
When
the most pleasant.
Okay. 5.
This
It's
is
like-
nice. This is reminds me a lot of number 4.
Yeah, so maybe,
Actually, it
maybe
reminds me
some
of
more.
number 1.
I was gonna say, I think number 1 had more bright notes in it, and that's what I'm getting number 5. But
Yeah, I think the nose on 1 is the best so far, and the flavor on 4 is the best. This is kind of like hitting in the middle ground there.
yeah. Oh, what's that middle note? Definitely very butterscotchy, like.
But it kind of drops
Yeah.
in the middle.
What is that?
This also has a long bitter finish.
Very long bitter finish, and there's like a. My brain went to salinity for this one, but it's not true. There's no salinity side, but it's this like herbally something with the flower note there. That's way darker. It's like a.
Yeah, it's earthy. I guess it's not like green. Like vegetal. It's
I don't like that one as much. It's a little too much going on where I'm like, I can't quite pinpoint. It has some interesting notes, and maybe that just needs time. But there's like a weird dip, like you said in the middle. That
yeah. I don't hate it.
No.
It's just it's not. It's almost there's almost too much happening.
which is crazy for a trad. You know,
Yeah.
a lot of times people will be like, "Yeah, that's a sign of a good trad," when there's like it is complex, you know,
multifaceted.
Yeah, but like maybe too much.
Yeah, I think that dark drop in the middle is disrupting the experience of drinking that one. Okay.
It's like a weird roller coaster. This is reminiscent number 1 or one of those bright ones. Number 6. Sorry, we didn't note.
Yeah, I mean this yeah, it reminds me of like 1 and 3 and 4, that just kind of middle of the road. Oh, it's quite smooth.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a lot smooth. It's
quite
smoother than it's like got the brightness, the notes of like maybe 1 and 2, and then but the smoothness of like 4.
Yeah.
4 was more mellow though, which is interesting. It's got that. It's not as bright and not quite citrusy like number 3 has that note.
Okay, yeah, number 6 I think is
To get your
in the
levels.
lead now, yeah.
Last but not least, number 7.
Number 7.
Let's see what we got.
Nose blind is really hitting.
Yeah, this is hard. Remember when we did this with 20 traditional meads?
Yeah.
That was real.
was
Real
a-
nose
that was like-
palate fatigue.
Gauntlet. Okay, yeah, smells like a trad. Ooh.
Whoa.
That has some of that bitter floral pollen-y kind of thing going on. Woo.
Yeah, there's like a
The bitterness kind of spreads.
just kind of bouncing around.
Yeah, it really kind of
That
continues.
one's odd, but it definitely does demonstrate the floral and all those notes that we're wanting from this trad. Through all 7, though, again, I have noted, or I don't think I've heard or seen anything that was a fusel or anything in off alcohol that was produced.
No.
Now, were there different levels of alcohol presence? I definitely think so.
I would say, in large part, 4 and 6 stand out as being the easiest to drink.
Yeah.
But everything other than number 2 has a very similar flavor.
Number
and-
2 or 3?
Number 2.
2?
Number 2 is the one
Oh,
that
it
had
was.
that zesty thing. all of these have a very similar drinking experience. Some have a longer finish. None of them have anything that really stands out other than number 2 has got that zesty character to it.
Which is, it's definitely interesting.
Yeah,
But it's
fun.
like, I feel like it's taking away from the trad.
It doesn't taste like honey.
No.
Yeah.
Which is that a nutrient that's doing that? I don't know. My pick for favorite is probably between 4 and 6. And I would lean to 6 because it had a little more bright note that was more interesting. 4 was also smooth, but it's, I think, taking into account aging, I think 6 will age better than 4.
Yeah, no, 6 is the easiest to drink out of all of these, and the one that tastes the most like what I expect a dry traditional mead to taste like.
Right. But overall, no fusels in any of these, which one of these is the no nutrient, so that's a demonstrator of that. And yeah, so let's do it. Let's reveal what we got. Number 1, grand reveal, staggered Fermaid O.
I think we should save number 2 for last.
Okay.
Because it's the outlier. So
Number
this was staggered
Fermaid O.
Okay.
Number 3, all up front Fermaid O, and then diammonium phosphate. Oh, sorry. Oh, hold on. I can't do it. That's wrong. All up front, DAP and Fermaid O. That's the staggered.
okay.
I had staggered in my head. So DAP
Okay.
and Fermaid O in conjunction.
Got it.
All up front.
Front loaded.
4, staggered Fermaid O, which that's one of those we noted that we liked.
And there's no like ammonia flavor or anything in there.
Staggered diammonium phosphate for number 5.
Okay. Our favorite.
All up front diammonium phosphate for number 6.
Okay.
Huh?
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, number 7. Oh, all up front Fermaid O. That means that
Number
the
2.
outlier, number 2, which has all the cool zesty orange notes, is the no nutrient.
No nutrients got us orange zest. Okay.
It's not bad. I will say it's not
it's
bad.
fun. It just doesn't taste like a traditional mead. I guess you could like
I
pretend it was made with orange blossom.
I think I used DV10 on this,
Okay.
which I don't know if DV10 puts off that orangey flavor, but maybe it does.
Everyone says it's a clean fermenter.
Right.
That's what all the propaganda says.
I want to do one last little test before we wrap this one up, and that is, I don't know that number 2 is totally dry.
Oh, we're gonna hydro it.
Let's get a real, because I think every other one of them, I know for a fact was, because I took the reading, and then I don't remember if I took the reading for this one. So,
Okay.
I'm gonna choose.
That is one narrow graduated cylinder, sir.
That's what she said.
Oh,
It's a Hank Hill graduated cylinder.
the reading I see with a little bit of trapped gas
Yeah. It's floating though.
is floating roughly. Well, that's also the gas though.
Yeah, no, it's dry. If that's the gas lifting it up, then it's dry.
This is showing
little
1004 with possibly some trapped gas that could be lifting it up.
Maybe
But
just leave it for a little while. And
we'll see. I'll report back. I don't think it's fully dry. Which, on the note of that, the no nutrient, in the time that these finished fermenting, 2 weeks, only got down to 1040. So these had burned through 110 points of gravity in 2 weeks. The no nutrient had burned through 70 in 2 weeks. So there was a clear
oh, interesting. Okay.
sign of slower fermentation right there. But I've also noticed with slower fermentation sometimes equals a greater keeping of the flavors from the honey because you're not blowing off
less
as much.
aggressive,
Yeah,
yeah.
and so maybe that was something with that honey that had those notes there. So there's something to be said about that.
What honey was it?
I'd have to go back to my notes.
It'll be on the screen at some point.
I think it's an interesting test. Of all of these, I find it most interesting that the all upfront diammonium phosphate was the one that we preferred the most because that's the least complex. Just straight up nitrogen, you know?
Yeah, well, and it's also not a nutrient schedule that most people follow.
No.
You know, most people are doing staggered nutrients of some kind. And so to just eat a bunch of DAP in there and pray is kind of, I mean, it turned out to be the most interesting mead, or the most palatable mead.
And then, the other one, staggered Fermaid O, followed by DAP, being number 4, was also interesting.
Really interesting.
Love to hear your comments, of course, what you think. If you've done a test like this, maybe you have, and I'm just the second or third person to do this. I'd love to know if you have, but this has been fun doing the most. BC here has done similar tests with bread yeast and many things like that, so if you would like to check out those, we like to do these because they're fun. We do them in a blind fashion, so we're not aware. We're not putting any prejudice on what's happening because we want the real scientific results. So I hope you will go check out Doing the Most. Link, of course, below. And thanks for watching. Cheers.
Cheers.